are not criminal in nature. I tell people trying to enforce the immigration law is like trying to enforce the tax law. It's not a criminal law, so you can't expect me to go out there and enforce a law that's not criminal. The only authority I have is that by way of a criminal violation. The Shepherd Act, Matthew Shepherd Act, is a criminal violation, but part of that is us understanding, and there has to be a willingness for the victim to put forth the information that is needed in order to enforce that particular law. And we're going to be honest with one another. A lot of times we still have a wall that's put up whereby we don't want to come forward with that necessary information. Unless it's so drastic, unless the crime is so heinous that we're willing to do that. A lot of times we don't. And the only way that we can enforce any hate crime law is that the person that's the victim of that law has to put forth certain elements that would allow us, number one, to classify that law, that violation, and then number two, to be able to actually apprehend someone and charge someone for those enhanced penalties. And a lot of it is based on the penalties. There are enhanced penalties based on certain hate crimes. Same way with gang activity. But if we don't get those clear elements that allow us to take it to that level, a lot of times we miss it.
Again, Chief Monroe, I appreciate you being here. I would like to say I've heard a lot of positive things here tonight. One of the things that I would like to see that I'm interested in is we're moving forward and thinking about the potential of the need for or not of an LGBT liaison is around the education. I hear that there's education coming at the beginning of the year around domestic LGBT, domestic violence. I would be curious to see who helped write that training. And was it from the perspective, and did it have inclusion of LGBT people? Because we know the issues. So I think it's important as we move forward and we're thinking about training the officers, and it's informal or formal through this liaison, that we're ensuring that the community has that opportunity to have a voice. And even if it's written in Raleigh or wherever, for us to still be able to kind of tweak it and work with your department, work with you guys to be able to ensure that it represents and that it speaks for us as well.
I'm not sure. I mean, as soon as we do obtain that block of instruction, that's something that we're more than willing to share, to take a look at, to see the research, how it was developed. And, I would, like to think that the state wouldn't just, sit in the dark room and say, hey, here's a training, I want you to train your officers on it, without fully exposing it to those that it would directly affect. But even outside of that, I believe that there's still opportunities that we can go beyond that. Because that block of training may only be a 1-2 hour block of training, and we may see that there's other issues that are more germane to this community than just what the state may have put forth.
And I appreciate that. I'm sorry, Roberta, I'm jumping over real quick one last thing. The reason why I said that, and that's a good starting point, because last year on the lake, and it had nothing to do with you guys, of course, but on the lake, there was an incident that there was a group of gay guys. We were out, we were partying, just like everybody else on the sandbar at Lake Norman, and all of a sudden a boat came by and, thought we were gay because it was a bunch of guys, started throwing beer bottles, glass bottles, breaking it against our boats. We called 911. It took an hour and 45 minutes before we could get police out on the water to help us. We kind of followed the boat. Long story short is when the actual police arrived to try to interview us, they didn't even know. They looked at us and said, well, what do we even call you? We're like, what do you mean, what do we call you? What do we call you, gay? Do we call you, no, you call us, my name's Richard. So I mean, just it goes back to that education is what I'm getting to. So that's a start, but it really encompasses a greater just how do you treat the LGBT community and in a lot of facets. But that was just a good example that I mean, for someone to even ask me, well, what do I call you? Well, you don't call, do you say that to an African American? Do you say that to a female? No, you just Richard or whatever the issue is. So it goes back to
hate crime, in which case
exactly.
And that's the point I was going to make. In order to get to that portion of the law, you have to make that claim. I can't designate that you have to make that claim in order for us to classify and for it to be reported that way. All hate crimes are reported up to the federal level, not just depending on what the crime may be. It could be a theft that's based on a hate crime that's reported up, whereby normally it may not be. But you have to make that designation. And how I go about asking how to make that designation, I don't know. But I think it's something that we have to be willing to try to understand. Officers that come on this department, there's no litmus test that we're able to give them to say, do you understand gay and lesbian issues? Do you understand black African American issues? Do you understand Latino issues? There's no test that we can give. So everything that we put forth is something that we have to train ourselves up to be able to do. And I don't think anybody should self-train themselves. It's an area in which there's expertise somewhere else. So I'm just saying to everyone tonight that we have a willingness to try to understand and determine what that training should look like. I'm not saying no. Now, can it be a 80-hour block of training? No. I want my officers on the street, and we have about 40 hours of training that we try to give our officers a year. The state mandates about 20 hours, which gives us about 20 additional hours that we have to put forth. And we have the latitude of where we take them with that training.
Chief Monroe, how are you?
I'm well.
My name's Janice Covington, to be precise. The question I had for you was about the Matthew Shepard Act, the anti-hate crimes bill that was signed by Obama probably 4 or 5 months ago. Gentleman here, one here, and one here, pretty well covered it. But my question is, since the Matthew Shepard Act has been law now for several months, what type of training has the Charlotte Police Department done to let those people out in the field know that, when they come up on a possible hate crime, if the individual is unconscious or incoherent, are they able to tell whether this was a hate crime or not?
No. And I would say there has been no training. And I say that because our first concern in a case like that, I don't think that hate crime instantly becomes known to us that it is a hate crime. I think it's something that's actually developed through the investigation because, again, only that victim can put forth the information to us that will allow us to be able to classify it. And again, it's still an assault. It's still a robbery. It's still a burglary. It's still an underlying crime that we're going to first and foremost look to investigate. Only later, as it relates for charging purposes and as well as classification purposes, does the hate crime element stand on top of that crime. Most of our officers are focused on the underlying crime. Now, if there is a pattern to be seen, yes, we want to be made aware of whether or not there's like patterns occurring out there in the community for that particular purpose. But to be honest with you, when that Matthew Shepard came down, no, there was no additional training that was put out.
Well, Matthew Shepard, the way the law reads, if I'm correct, it gives the power of the police department or local law enforcement the task of initial investigation and to seek out and try to solve the case or capture a perpetrator. Now, if the job isn't done, then I understand that the federal people, the FBI, comes in and tries to solve the problem if the local police department doesn't do the job. Is that correct?
Trust me, the FBI, I had this conversation today with Owen Harris, who's the special agent in charge for this particular area. Again, it's the crime that's going to be investigated, and that doesn't change. If it's a shooting, it doesn't change. If it's a robbery, it doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the classification and the enhancement of the penalty. I still have to investigate that case as a crime. It doesn't go away, and that's where the emphasis is on that particular crime. Not, I don't say, well, I'm going to now do something special because I have a person that's shot that has a certain designation, and that shouldn't be the case. A human being was shot, robbed, assaulted, or whatever the case, that should be the emphasis of our investigation. Every time. Every time.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Lee, and I'm a bridge builder. We've been bridging builders with the LGBT community and the aging community through Gay and Gray. And so thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for letting us interlope on your meeting, because you're on our time too. I have two things. One is, it seems to me that part of what you're saying is that everybody's individual participation in their own communities through Community Watch and working with their Community Watch police is a way to do some self-education in your own community about what your issues are in your own neighborhood, so that you can begin with your own Community Watch and liaison that person, the more they know you and they know what's going on. Would they be a potential group of individuals who could receive the training first versus the academy? I'm not sure if I'm understanding. The academy implies to me that these are all the new officers versus field officers that are already in the field. And I have one more question after that.
We have both. We have recruit training and we have in-service training, where every officer in the department, all 1,750 officers, are required to go through 40 hours of training every year. So there are several opportunities where that can occur. But on the same token, we have a citizens police academy where we send hundreds of citizens through an abbreviated, how many weeks, 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks, training in police operations, different crimes, different operations of the department, so that citizens can see what we see. They can understand things that are occurring in their community, what to look for, how to look for certain aspects. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we can bring forth as it relates to training, both internally and externally as a community. And we wouldn't mind sharing those same training points with our citizens police academy.
And that's my follow-up question. Domestic violence is a very small slice of the pie with the LGBT community. It seemed like a broader dialogue about LGBT issues might be available. And one of the things that we're working on is a community dialogue with just about the senior advocates in a gay environment stage, just won the National LGBT Outreach Award from the Administration on Aging. And we are working with their curriculum to bring that training to any community agency. And so we would be very willing to work with you and your team and your staff at any level on bringing the No Need to Fear, No Need to Hide training curriculum to you.
Before I unveil any training, I want to make sure it's the right training. I don't want to just pick and grab something and say, here you go, officers, here's your training, and I've satisfied that request. I think we have to be thoughtful of what that training actually should look like and what purpose do we want it to serve. I don't want to train my officers just for the sake of saying, okay, you've had some, I'm going to get this right,
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, LGBT. Hang on. Thank you. I'm sorry, I've been in and out of the room. I'm the center administrator here, so I have a lot of other things to do while this is going on. But you may have actually answered my question, or at least address what it was I wanted to say. I was in there earlier. You were talking about